Everybody, and happy Monday. Today is live stream number 32 and it is July 24th, 2017. Thank you so much for taking the time to join here. If you're watching this, you are watching the recording. We haven't gotten quite anybody in there yet. We got a little bit of delay on the live stream, but I'm sure people will trickling in here. Thank you so much for watching the recording here. Now, down in the description area of this video, you will find my email address, lars.christensen@autodesk.com. You are definitely more than welcome to send me any suggestions for any future topics of these live streams. You will also find the link for the CNC Handbook, the free CNC Handbook. You can download that one. It is an awesome content if you are into CAM. So definitely check that out. There's a couple of other things down there you're definitely more than welcome to check. I can see we already got a couple of people in here. We got Jacob in here. Hello, Jacob. Thank you so much for taking the time. And Chris, really appreciate you guys for joining. We got Rich in here too. That's awesome. Really appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy day to join these live streams. Like I said, it is number 32. We got Bob in here. We got Sunil, really appreciate it. So today's live stream is all about CAM. So if you're not into CAM at all inside of Fusion 360, just flick the switch, find something else to watch, and then come back tomorrow. So one thing I can say is that if you are trying to catch the live streams, what as though a lot of people are, and the notification inside of YouTube is, I don't think it's not quite great, that this week, and today, like I said, July 24th, this week, I'm going to do them all at 3 p.m. Eastern. So the same time all week. So at least that will give you kind of like a chance to maybe, aim in, and maybe you can catch one of them during the week. Like I said, this one today is about CAM. It's all about templates. Tomorrow, we're going to jump back and talk a little bit broad about other Fusion things here. I can see again, we got a bunch of people in here. We're up to 25. It's awesome. Eric is in here. Seth, awesome. Seth, thank you for joining. Trigger Joel is in here. So it's just awesome that you guys are taking the time of your busy day. Today, I don't think it's going to be crazy long one. But before I do that, if you are subscribed to the channel, what I of course appreciate, you should have seen that earlier this morning I released a walkthrough of how I did the Jimmy DiResta work tables inside of Fusion 360. A few weeks ago, a month ago maybe, I did a live stream about cut lists. And I used a workbench that I had modeled up inside of Fusion 360 that was kind of inspired by Jimmy DiResta. I'm a big fan of his. And some people asked me how I had modeled that up. So if you are not subscribed, you probably didn't get notified. If you go to my YouTube channel, you will see about a 20-minute video where I take it from start to finish on that one if you're looking for something else to watch. All right, let's jump into this. I'm going to get back to the chat at the end, but let's go in and talk a little bit about CAM templates inside of Fusion 360, because if you've never heard of CAM templates, this probably is going to kick your productivity. Hopefully you're already pretty productive inside of Fusion 360 with CAM, but this might just take it to the next level. This is definitely pretty sweet. So let me switch over here to Fusion 360. This is where we want to be anyways, right? So don't worry too much about what you see on the screen here. You've probably seen me use this one in other kind of environments. But if you look over the feature tree over here, you'll see when I program this part, you apply all these kind of different tool paths to your model, right? And this is just a fairly simple 2.5 axis, but still, you end up with all different kinds of tool paths in here. And my biggest fear when I was working when I was programming CNC machines back a few years ago was that you forgot one of these checkboxes, because a lot of the stuff you're doing when you're programming is fairly repetitive. When it goes to setting different things. Like, now I'm right now in a finishing pocketing operation in here, but that by default has stock to leave on. And maybe, and in this case here, the adaptive actually did all that work. So this is meant as a finishing operation. So then you have to remember to turn that off. You maybe play around with your lead in, lead out. By default, it was a helix, but now you want it to be plunge. You kind of tweaking all these things. This is a spot drilling operation, and normally when I do a spot drilling operation, I always do my bottom height is always 1 millimeter from the top. So you're going in here and you're tweaking all these different settings inside of your CAM toolpath. And if you're programming on a regular basis, you're doing it over and over and over again. And like I said, my biggest fear when I programmed was always when you make mistakes, it's always like where you afterwards you're like, ugh, I knew that. So what templates will do is it will let you take something that you programmed where you tweaked everything, feet and speeds, lead in, lead out, and all these things. And you can save them as a template. And then you can reuse them again. So you don't have to start from scratch all the time. So if I go in here, and the way you do it is I have this whole setup, and you can either go in and you can just select a few operations. I'm holding down Control or Command if you are inside of a Mac. You can select a few operations, or what I normally like to do is I select all the operations. So I hold down Shift and I select the bottom one. I've selected all these. This is all operations that I ran this job out on the shop floor. I know that all my feeds and speeds are good for, my setup. I know that I had the right leads in, leads out, stock to leave, all this stuff. I highlight them all. I can right click, and then I can go down here and I can say Store to Templates. And when I click on that, it will open up in the location where this is stored. Now, I'm going to show you in a second. You can actually also do this on the cloud. So I'm going to come to that in a second. But by default, this is where it will store your templates. And you will see right now in here, I have one called Free Access Rough and Finish, and I have one called Standard Turning. And you can name these whatever you want. Maybe you name these templates after a customer. So I used to do a lot of like hydraulic manifolds. So maybe you program one of these hydraulic manifolds and you create a library in here for that specific customer with those different parts. You can really do kind of like whatever kind of fits to your situation. So maybe just it might take. Get a cup of coffee, sit down, and kind of like think through how this maybe would work with yours. But if you have never done it before, just start out like I'm doing here with something basic. So I might just call this 2D milling, and it's again you will see where it's saved. So it saves it by default in your user, your name, app data, local, Fusion 360 CAM, and in the template folder. Now, like I said, I'm going to show you just in a second. You can actually also use the cloud. We're going to talk about that in a second. But I'm going to save this as 2D milling because that's pretty much what it is. So what I've just done is I've saved all these operations in this template with all its feeds and speeds, step overs, and all that stuff. Now, tomorrow comes, and we got to go in and program this part. I can see I already have some stuff in here. Let's just delete that. Delete. Okay, so you now have to program this part, whatever this is. Doesn't, and again, maybe not the best examples, but just kind of like take you through this process. So I go into CAM, and you always got to do a setup, right? So I'm going to create a setup, and you're going to make sure your origin is the right way, and all that stuff you normally do. Nothing new there. When it comes to the point where I'm ready to program this, instead, where you normally will now go up here and start doing a facing operation, you'll do adaptive and finishing and all this stuff. All I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the setup, and right here there's create from templates, and you will actually see that right in here I have the different ones. So this is one we just saved, and you can click, if you click select template, it would actually take you back out to where you were. So you could actually be clever and create some kind of a folder structure out here if you wanted to. Again, like I said, maybe specific customers, whatever, materials, whatever fits into what you think. But if I select that milling there and hit open, first you think that nothing happened, but you actually did get a little arrow here. And here are all those operations from our part over here. Now you say to yourself, well, that's a completely different part from the other one. Well, it is, but a lot of the operations are the same, right? So what I can do now is, and you will see they all have red marks. That's because they need to be generated, just like if you made a design change. So what I can actually do here is if I just go in, the facing operation is pretty simple. I'm just going to right click and say generate toolpath. And that one is pretty obvious because it just finds the outside here. And bam, there's my facing operation with that tool that I used in the other one that I know where I know that the step overs, the feeds and speeds and everything is okay. When we go down and look at the adaptive, well, the adaptive here, I will have to go in and edit the selection of geometry. So I'm going to right click and hit edit, but I don't have to worry about the tool. That is that same tool with the same feeds and speeds. So if I go over to the geometry tab, well, I'm going to select my geometry. So in this case, I might just select the two inner pockets. I want to rough those out. And I'm going to select the outer contour here. But again, when I go to the heights tab, that's going to be the same as whatever there was in the previous operation. My load conditions, my start to leave, and even like my lead ins and leads out, they are all going to be from what we had on this file. What again, if we had confirmed that everything worked, oops, I just exited out of it, confirmed that everything worked, then you can trust that A, you're not going to forget anything, but B, that you know that this is already verified. Same thing, like I said, I pulled out my spot drill, right? If I go in here and say edit the holes in here, again, my spot drill is selected from that library. I can go in and select the hole here, the two holes, and I now know that my depth is again from the mod, whatever I set in that template. So creating these templates can save you a bunch. Now there's certain things in here that I know I don't maybe need. So there was a threading operation on this one over here. It had a threading operation in here. Well, this one don't have it. Well, all I have to do is click on it and I can hit delete on my keyboard and it's gone, right? I can delete the operation. I can right click and hit delete, whatever you want. I can delete the operations out of here that I know I don't need. This is definitely a lot faster than working with creating all the ones every single time. Now, one of the questions I got from one of you guys were, how do you delete templates after you have created them? Well, all you really have to do is going into one part, right click, and you can go into create template in here. And if I go and hit select templates, I'm brought right back into where they all are. And this is Windows, right? So I can just literally right click here and hit delete, and I can delete that template out of there again. So if you ever got to clean it up or something like that, or you can also just, of course, navigate right to this area. If I go in here, if you select up here, you can do a Control C, and then you can just open up, your standard Windows browser and paste that selection in, and you're back inside of that area. And you can completely register this in here. If I go in here, maybe I create a folder in here, you can see that it becomes created right in here, and I can now rename this one whatever I want to do. Materials maybe, customers maybe, really what you kind of find helpful. So how did I do that again? Let's go back into the first one. I selected the operations, not the setup. I selected the operations, and you can either select, just a couple, or you can select them all, whatever you want, and then you just right click, and right down here there is a store as template. You click on that, it'll bring you right to that folder, and you can now type in whatever you want. So if we're going to the steel, we can call that whatever makes sense to you. So that's how you store the templates. And then again, like I said, to reuse them, how to reuse these templates, right click on the setup, and then go in and say create from templates. Now you will see right now my 2D steel is missing because this just shows the root directory. But if you go in and select template, you will see that now the steel one shows up, and there is the steel one. Hit open, and now those appear, the ones I selected out of there. I definitely hope that you find this helpful. It's one of those I almost call like hidden gems. If you never played with templates before, it's definitely something you should think about. Especially when you run a part on your CNC machine and everything ran smooth. You got it all dialed in, step overs, feet and speeds, and all that. Going back in here and save it as a template, it can just save you a ton of time. Now, I said before, cloud libraries, because there is cloud libraries inside of Fusion 360. What I showed you right now is how it works in the default space. So if you just open up Fusion, if you've never enabled clouds, let's talk about clouds. And I think I talked about this when I was talking about talking about tool libraries a few live streams back. If you're interested in that, go in on the YouTube channel. You can find that video in there. Actually, if you just go in, you can search right in there, and it should come up. So, no, let's not close this down. Let's just go up to your name up here and click Preferences, and that's going to open up in here. And now, I know that this preferences are kind of it's time to figuring out what all the stuff is in here, but it's really, I think it's worth spending spend 15 minutes and just go in and see what all the different settings are if you never have. Now, under CAM, you will see that there's something called Enable Cloud Libraries. Now, if I turn that on and hit Apply and hit OK, that means that now when I go in and right-click up here and say From Templates, you will actually see that I get some different looking templates in here. That's because I'm not pulling from that root directory, whatever it was again, users, username, app data. I'm not pulling from it local on your machine anymore. I am pulling from the cloud. And that can be extremely helpful if you, for example, are working on a laptop out on the shop floor, but you're using a PC at home and you program a little bit at night, that means pretty much when using the cloud library that you can log into anybody who has Fusion with your credentials, and that library, those operations will be available for you. Where they are located in Fusion for the cloud, if you go out to the data panel and you go all the way out to the root out here, if you scroll down to the bottom, near the bottom, there's something called assets. And if you open that up, you will see that there is CAM templates, CAM tools, and CAM posts. So last time when I talked about tool libraries, that's where they are stored. Well, here is where the templates are stored. And you will actually see I'm part of another group. That was why you saw those other templates in there when I right-clicked in here and do from templates before. Now you'll see it shows up with these different templates. I think actually I have to probably shut down Fusion and restart it again for it to kick in. But this is where templates from now on will be created. So if I, for example, well, let's see if maybe I don't want to restart Fusion if I don't have to. If I go in on this operation here, right-click here, and do right-click and say store these as templates. Now I get a template name. Let's call it test live stream. I didn't test this out, folks. Let's just see here. Now, if like I said, I might have to restart, but this is where, it says that there they go. So now you will see that it gets stored in here. What is pretty cool. So they're not stored locally. Now they're stored in this CAM template folder. that was under your main directory down in assets down here, that you can now bring these in. Now, I also wanted to show this because some of you is going to say, well, this is awesome. I want to use the cloud because the clouds are awesome. But what about the libraries that I already, that I have already stored locally? How do I get them in here? You just literally are using the upload buttons just like if it was a file. So if I go in here to upload, I go in here and select files. I can go and I can paste in that directory wherever they are located. I can select them from right there, and now also bring them up in here, and when they get uploaded, just like you would do with a file. So that's how you can bring things from local up here if you want to. But if you have never played with libraries, templates, if you've never played with templates before, camp templates before, I would probably just, unless you have some reason not to, I would go into the preferences, turn on cloud libraries, and just store them in the cloud. There's not really any reason to have them locally, unless, of course, you want to do kind of like dual thing, and then you can do that too. If you go back into to this area here, you can always go out to the web access for these, right? So I can click right here, and then it opens up another screen. Click right here, and the folder will open up right here. And now I have my libraries, and you can bring them local if you want to, right? You can share them with other people if you feel like it. So just to kind of like reiterate, these libraries, for a few people who always didn't hit it right on the 3 p.m. Eastern, these templates are extremely helpful. You program the part on your mill, or your lathe or whatever, and you got all the settings set in here. Your feet and speed, your step overs. You ran it out of the machine. It was awesome. You got a great part, and you're thinking, man, if every day could just be like this. Well, if you go in here, you can save them. Like I said before, you can save them as a template. So right click, you can store them as a template. You get to give them some kind of a name here. So let's just call these 2D live stream. And again, I'm doing this right now on the cloud. If you want to do it locally, well, this video will be up on YouTube in 20 minutes or so. And you can see how you can do it locally. So now that I've been brought up here, if I go back into this part, that is a new part we got from a customer. We will create a standard setup, and you will just right click on that and say create from template, and there will that library be. You select it, and all those operations that you had from the previous jobs where everything was happy, the customer loved the parts, they paid you top premium, and all you now have to do is to go in the operations that you maybe don't need from that part. You can delete those. You can go in and you can edit each operation, but all the feeds and speeds and everything are the same. You just have to go in and maybe select the geometry that needs to be selected in here. You can, of course, add more geometry in here. So maybe I go in and say I want to do a 2D chamfer, and that will now be added in here. And then maybe you add that to another template, however that kind of works. All right, guys, I hope this was useful. Like I said, today was just all cam. So I hope that you guys found that useful. We got 57 in here, what is awesome. It's Monday, and 57 people jumping in. Love it. Don't forget that in the description area of the video is my email address. If there's anything you would like to see on these live streams, shoot me an email. Like I said earlier, all the live streams this week are scheduled at 3 p.m. Eastern, so same time as today. So hopefully, that beats some of the notification issues that I know some of you guys have. Same time tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about Fusion in a browser. So maybe some of you guys saw that has been released as kind of preview, or I think in a software term we call it a soft release. But let's take a look at that tomorrow. That is definitely something that is very interesting. I will kind of like give you my opinion about it for whatever that is worth. Let me just check inside of in here. I can see we got a bunch of communication in here, what is awesome. Isaac from Mexico, of course. Hi, Isaac. We got Jared from Quebec. Love those Montreal Canadiens. Yeah, really appreciate it. So what is the sequence of a template is different in another part? Can I have the same sequence, the tool operations of every part? That's a good question, Sunil. Well, so what you can do in here is, as you probably saw, you get them in the same order as you had saved them from the templates. But don't forget that you can take any of these operations and drag and drop them somewhere else here. So you can reorder things in here. And I could definitely see a scenario where you store a file out as a template, and you then maybe run on the next part, and then you maybe find I gotta tweak that a little bit. So you maybe delete the original template and restore the new one, or maybe you kind of like make a child from that. I mean, with great, you can do whatever you want. Just remember one thing: with great power come great responsibilities. Definitely make sure that you name things appropriately, or they can pretty quickly become a mess. But again, just like as I showed you how you could delete them from a local area, you can of course also go in here, and you can at any point right click, and you get the options to delete them or whatever you want in here. So super good question in there. All right, let me just see here if there's any other questions that just pop out. I don't see that, but I see that we got people from all over the world: Australia, Canada, UK. You guys are awesome. So tomorrow, 3 p.m., same time as today, and we're going to talk a little bit about this new preview of actually using Fusion in the browser. So I'm excited about talking about that. I'm going to do as I normally do. I'm going to end the broadcast here for the video. Again, if you're watching the recording, thank you so much for doing that. And I'm going to jump into the chat and say hi to everybody who's watching live. Thank you so much, and happy Monday, everyone.